The moon has always been humanity's most haunting companion, a silent witness drifting across our night skies, pulling at our oceans with invisible tides, and luring our ancestors into endless myths of gods, spirits, and mysteries. But when NASA announced its Artemis rocket launch, a mission not just to revisit the surface of the moon but to unlock what many call its hidden mystery, the world felt a collective shiver of excitement and fear, because this mission was not only about planting flags or collecting rocks like Apollo but about diving into the questions no one dared to ask in public. What truly lies on the far side of the moon, that cold and dark hemisphere we never see from Earth, and why for decades have whispers of strange anomalies, unexplained signals, and even possible ancient structures kept resurfacing in hushed tones among scientists, insiders, and conspiracy theorists alike. And so as the Artemis rocket thundered upward from the launch pad, its engines igniting the Florida night into blinding daylight, billions of eyes watched not just history repeating itself but history bending into a new chapter where mysteries long buried could no longer be ignored. And from that very first moment, a sense of destiny wrapped itself around the mission, because unlike the Apollo era, where secrecy and Cold War competition guided what could and could not be revealed, Artemis was framed as a mission of transparency, a mission for humanity, a mission that would bring women and men alike to the moon and eventually to Mars. Yet deep inside NASA's vaults the story was far stranger, for Artemis was quietly designed to probe the deepest scars of the lunar surface, regions where unusual magnetic anomalies had been recorded, where strange flashes of light were observed despite the moon having no atmosphere to ignite them, where seismographs left by Apollo astronauts once picked up unexplained moonquakes that suggested hollow chambers beneath the crust. And as engineers tightened bolts and scientists checked flight data, a smaller circle of insiders whispered about one chilling possibility: that the moon itself might not be what we think it is, that it could hold secrets of ancient civilizations, extraterrestrial presence, or even a role as an artificial construct placed in orbit long before human history began. And so, with every countdown second ticking away, the Artemis rocket was carrying not only astronauts, instruments, and lunar landers but also centuries of hidden questions. And as the boosters lit and the rocket pierced through the clouds, humanity was not just watching a launch, it was watching the opening of a door to the unknown, a journey into the shadow where the hidden face of the moon was waiting, silent and patient, guarding its truths that could either expand our place in the cosmos or shatter it forever. And as the Artemis rocket tore beyond the grasp of Earth's atmosphere and entered the silent vacuum of space, that door to the unknown seemed to creak open a little wider, for in that boundless blackness the mission's true weight revealed itself, not merely to demonstrate technological superiority or rekindle national pride, but to confront the deepest cosmic riddle humanity had dared to ignore. And as the capsule separated from the booster stage and settled into its trajectory toward the moon, the crew members' voices crackled across mission control, their words carefully scripted for the world to hear, yet their eyes betraying something else: the silent awareness that they were about to sail into the shadows of a body that had refused to surrender its secrets for thousands of years. Because though we call the moon familiar, though it hangs above us like a watchful lantern, the truth is we have barely touched it. We have scratched its surface with boots and rovers but never pierced its hidden heart, and Artemis was designed to change that forever. Carrying instruments that could scan its crust with penetrating radar, drills capable of boring deeper than any Apollo mission dared, and communication arrays sensitive enough to pick up the faintest radio whispers from the far side, where strange bursts of signals had occasionally been intercepted, signals so unearthly in their rhythm that some within NASA privately labeled them artificial in origin. And as the capsule glided silently across the gulf of space, Earth shrinking into a fragile marble behind them, the astronauts knew that once they crossed into lunar orbit and the far side loomed into view, contact with mission control would be severed for nearly an hour in which they would be alone with whatever lay hidden in that dark expanse. And this is where the suspense thickens, because in the archives of the Apollo missions, there exist declassified fragments of audio, cut transmissions, silences edited out, unexplained gaps that have long been speculated to hide encounters that could not be broadcast, some claim. Apollo 11 itself saw lights moving along a ridge. Some whisper that Apollo 17's instruments detected a massive subterranean void stretching for miles beneath the Taurus Latrobe Valley, And while skeptics dismiss these as technical anomalies or the product of conspiracy-hungry minds, Artemis was built not to dismiss, but to verify, to peer into those scars and see if they are truly natural or something else entirely. And as the hours passed and the gray sphere of the moon swelled larger in the spacecraft's viewport, every heart on Earth seemed to beat in unison, for the world was not just watching a return. It was watching a revelation, the moment when humanity might finally confront whether we are alone or whether, in that darkened hemisphere shielded from Earth's gaze, something waits, ancient and patient, for us to arrive, and the crew, 3 astronauts whose names the world would remember forever, sat silently as the moon's far side approached, its craters jagged, its ridges steep, its surface lit only by the cold reflection of sunlight that gave the illusion of serenity but carried an undertone of menace. And as the spacecraft slipped behind the lunar body, cutting all radio contact with Earth, a chilling silence enveloped them, one so absolute it seemed almost alive, and in that silence, the crew's instruments began to pick up anomalies. Magnetic readings that fluctuated wildly as though vast metallic structures lay beneath the regolith, strange pulses in the radio spectrum echoing like coded messages, seismic murmurs that suggested hollow caverns deep underground, and the lead astronaut, though trained to maintain composure, scribbled a note in his log that would only later become public. The moon is not what we think it is. And while Earth waited anxiously for the capsule to re-emerge, while Mission Control's monitors flickered with static, the crew themselves were facing the unfiltered truth that the lunar far side may not simply be a geological desert but a graveyard of secrets older than human civilization, for some theories suggest the moon may have been captured, placed deliberately into orbit in such perfect synchronization that we only ever see one face, a cosmic lock designed to conceal its true side from us. And the Artemis team was beginning to feel the weight of those theories pressing down on them, as though the very air, though none existed, was heavy with unspoken knowledge, and as their instruments scanned deeper, faint images began to form on their screens, geometric patterns beneath the surface, ridges forming unnatural angles, shadows cast where no sunlight could have reached, and though they tried to explain these as imaging glitches or sensor interference, the patterns repeated too precisely, like buried walls or corridors stretching for miles. And in that moment the crew realized the mission had shifted, for this was no longer just science. This was confrontation with the unknown, and when at last the capsule emerged from the lunar shadow and communications returned, their voices carried a tone the public could not detect but Mission Control understood, a mixture of awe and dread, the same tone heard decades earlier in the unbroadcast fragments of Apollo recordings. And NASA, though committed to public openness, quietly marked the data as restricted. Yet rumors trickled out, whispers that Artemis had detected signs of artificial construction beneath the far side craters, whispers that sent conspiracy forums into frenzy and shook even hardened skeptics, because if true, it meant humanity's story was not alone, that the moon was not merely a rock but perhaps a vault, a sentinel, a beacon left by forces unknown. And as Artemis prepared to deploy its lander into one of the most shadowed regions, the South Pole Aitken Basin, a crater so deep sunlight barely touches it, suspense reached a fever pitch. For this was where strange lights had been reported for centuries, even by astronomers of the 1600s, flashes of brilliance erupting in the dark, unexplainable without atmosphere or weather, and some ancient records even described the moon as a place of gods descending and ascending, myths that suddenly felt less like fantasy and more like fragments of forgotten truth. And as the lander detached, its descent engines firing, its legs extended toward the gray soil, the world watched the live stream in awe, unaware that behind the sanitized feed NASA was filtering signals, aware that what the lander saw in its last 100 meters could not be explained away easily, because the cameras captured shapes, angular shadows, patterns too symmetrical to be natural.